Welcome or welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. All right, tonight we have the very distinctive pleasure to be joined by someone who I've wanted to interview for a while. His name is Robert. So, Robert, why don't you get into the conversation and explain kind of your origin story, some of the experiences you've had along the way, and everything you do for Discord and everything. So, who is Robert Tirotta? Your hour starts right now. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. This is Robert Tirotta. I was born with optic nerve hypoplasia, so the optic nerves in my to go to the from my eye to the brain just aren't fully developed. More recently, losing additional vision after a non-cancerous tumor grew off my pituitary gland, putting pressure on the optic nerves, causing more atrophy. So I kind of grew up here in United States, here in Indiana, and just kind of not really sure kind of where to fit in with things, I suppose. I was always kind of a strange kid and just interacted with others. I don't know. Wasn't quite, not quite sure how to explain it, but long story short, I ended up getting a PlayStation when I was 10 and falling into a very deep sort of a gaming addiction for the next 20, almost 20 years or so. And that kind of leads us up to now, essentially. What I do with Discord, however, is I am a moderator of blind buddies, and I basically just kind of help keep the peace. I go in and chat with members. I'll stream stuff from time to time. I like to stream games or other things that I'm doing so that people have something to look at or listen, when they come in and chat amongst other members. So that's kind of where I go with things. And more recent, as of a more recent development during my journey here as well, I have been crafting these 90-minute experiences, I suppose you could call them. I guess they're escape rooms, but I'm starting to call them something. They're more like 90-minute adventures, I suppose. But it started off with a vote from the community, saying, hey, here's a few different themes, and I just let people vote for the one they wanted, and it just kind of, the rest is history. So we have two of them down and one on the way, and I'm just very sort of excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, absolutely. The escape rooms are definitely a lot of fun, and I certainly enjoy it. Absolutely. So yeah, that is all very interesting. All right, but let's go back a little bit further. So, what
Sure.
were some of the experiences you had while growing up? Because you've kind of mentioned to me that you've had a lot of those experiences. So, what were some of the experiences you've had while growing up?
Well, growing up, I, well, I had my parents, I was taken away from my parents when I was 3. They were having issues and, drug related stuff, but, you know, and I was adopted by I call her my grandmother. She's not really, but she's, someone that my mom actually knew. So, long story short, I've been living with her all these years. She's brought me up and helped me become the person I am today. But it's not been easy. As I said earlier, I've had, was kind of a strange kid. I didn't really know how to interact with other people socially. I guess that's the one thing I never really learned well over the years. Um, I really don't know quite how to explain it, but I didn't know how to like communicate and play with other kids the way, other kids did, if that makes
Right.
any sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I grew up, it even got worse once I got the PlayStation and the whole gaming addiction thing came to be. I went through 5 years of school without talking to almost anybody. um, until I went to the Indianapolis School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and I started coming out of my shell then, and afterwards attempting college, finding out that I wasn't ready for that. Plus, I had an undiagnosed thyroid issue that we that caused me to fall asleep doing my homework. So I don't know. I guess over the years I've just felt sort of I had friends, but I felt sort of alone in a way. Not really sure kind of where I fit in with things, you know. And then you get fights and arguments and stuff here at home, and things going on that you have to deal with. And it wasn't easy, but I probably had it better than a lot of people, I would say, from some of the other stories I've heard, which, are much more harrowing, I should say. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I too also struggled for most of my life socially. Yeah, I always had a hard time um, growing up. I never really had any friends growing up. We always lived in a very rural area, and the people in that sometimes the people in rural areas tend to be closed-minded. Of course, there's closed-minded people everywhere, really, but
absolutely.
I think that the environment where we grow up it dictates a lot. In my case, I grew up in a very rural community where there was almost no interaction with
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Now, to our overseas listeners, this would sound very silly and very strange because in most other countries you live in much more of an urban setting for much longer of your life. But here in the States, people live in small towns for much of their life, much of their life. Excuse me.
yeah.
Uh,
And that's just it. I
and
live way out in
yeah.
the middle of nowhere as well, and it takes me an hour and a half to walk to a gas station, half hour to walk to church. And I had a complete stranger essentially show me the layout of my area. So now I can, as of last year, I could finally walk my block or walk the block in front of us, which I never had the confidence to do before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I see you've mentioned that how you'll walk to church or walk to a location near you, right? Yeah, you have mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So, though, throughout these 20 years that you became, fixated and fascinated by the PlayStation, that you got when you were 10. So,
Yeah.
what do you really think about that looking back? Um, what was right, let me go ahead and hold on just one second. Actually, I'm going to tell him, okay, we actually have the South Africa office just joined us. That's actually interesting. I'm going to say, when he comes in here, okay, so when he comes in, I'm going to have him mute himself. And he has very good etiquette, so I'm not being too concerned about it. But yeah, then you learned about this whole PlayStation thing, and I think that really helped you to become fixated by these video games, right? So
Yeah.
what can you tell me? First of all, by the way, young lion, I did not push the mute upon entry thing, so please mute yourself, if you don't mind. And then, of course, we'll unmute you at the end. So what video games did you play when you were so fascinated over these 20 years, do you think?
That's an interesting story. It started off when I was 9. I was going to summer school, which happened to be the school for the blind and visually impaired here in Indianapolis. That was the first time I had ever been there. And it's an awesome school. A lot of property. But anyway, while I was at the dorm, they had these huge plasma screen TVs, I think they were, and I was given the option to play Resident Evil 1 for PS1 at the time. And ever since that moment, I could never figure out how to play it while I was there. I figured out how to move around and open my inventory, and I think I might have even worked out how to equip a weapon, but I could never figure out how to shoot. So I would
Right.
go through the dining room, through the wooden door into the west hallway, and as you turn the corner, you see a zombie having some dinner with one of the STARS members. So it's a police officer that unfortunately the zombie got a hold of. So he basically gets up, comes after you, and I'm 9. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? So I'm sort of running around like mad, and I end up running back to the dining room and back out into the main hall. And I think I once maybe got up into the upstairs east hallway, and there was another zombie there that got me because I could never figure out how to shoot. But a year later, got my PlayStation when I was 10 for my birthday and a copy of Resident Evil 2, and I just sat there and figured it out over time. I figured out how to shoot, and then I started figuring out how to maneuver past zombies more. Some of the puzzles I was able to work out, but I was stuck on one in particular for years, which stopped me from completing the game. And by that time, I branched out into other things like Dino Crisis, Crash Bandicoot, Silent Hill, which is a much more terrifying experience, and a whole lot more. Ended up getting a PS2, and after that, a whole bunch of other consoles. And when I was 16, a laptop. And that's when I discovered emulation, which is basically playing games from one system on another. And that just blew my mind at the time.
Yeah, that's
But
pretty cool.
that's pretty much how my life's been. All I cared about was games. Nothing else. People, my environment, everything else didn't matter for so long.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very compelling and very, very interesting. And there's probably a lot of reasons why I can imagine privately, I can imagine what some of those reasons were, but
Yeah,
it's it would be pretty obvious to the listener, I think. But that
right.
does, anyway, as far as the games that you enjoyed emulating from system to system, what games did you emulate?
Well, when I found out I could play my PlayStation games on a computer, I immediately, grabbed all the Resident Evils. I think those were among the first things I emulated. And
Hmm.
then I went back in time all the way to the 90s and early 2000s when, Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance and all those were a big thing. And I got to play those. It was such a joy actually going back and seeing the games I missed out on. And I think even today, my favorite titles are games that have a retro aesthetic or sort of a pixel art style, or some that are more 16-bit in nature, rather than more modern stuff. It's easier to see usually, and I don't know. I think it has a little more charm than some of the modern stuff today. Some of it's actually pretty good though. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So this whole Resident Evil franchise, I mean, it sounds familiar, but I'm not terribly. So what is the Resident Evil franchise?
basically it's about a corp. Well, each game has a different story, but the gist of it is there was a Umbrella Corporation was founded at some point, and they began creating or viruses that would turn people into monsters. Zombies or bioweapons that they wanted to try and create bioweapons that they could control and use for their own purposes or and whatnot. They would make super soldiers and people that would like mutate into these grotesque looking things. And each game just unveiled a little more of that story and the lives of the different characters that were in that universe. So, and it went from Resident Evil 1, where you're one of two of the STARS member. You could choose between Chris or Jill as STARS members were like special forces, as I said earlier, police, officers, and you're investigating why there's a series of murders here in Raccoon City in the forests. To now, these days, you're Resident Evil has evolved from zombies. There's these viruses are creating, you know, things that look more like werewolves, I suppose. And there's like Las Plagas that are causing people to. It's basically controlling people, causing them to, do someone else's will. They're still kind of there, but they're not. They can actually use weapons and complete daily chores, whereas a regular old zombie couldn't. So it's quite an extensive series. There's a lot to it. I'm not even sure exactly where to start. But that's pretty much it's evolved and changed, and they've tried so many things with it over the years.
I
There's
see. I
eight
see.
eight games in the main series and tons of side games.
Really? Well, they
Yeah,
produced 8 different games. Yeah.
in the
So
main series. And
they turned it into a whole franchise.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, and
interesting.
they've already remade two they remade one, but they've already remade two, three, and four.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing they're going to be doing Zero and Code Veronica next.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're really rolling with it. It's a big moneymaker for Capcom.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. How much
My
money do you think they've made with that
oh my
franchise?
goodness, millions, millions, millions easily. Um, Probably hundreds of millions. Because I don't know exactly how much the most popular game sold, but it's been going on long enough, longer than most other series I know. So they've got to be making a good chunk of change off of it for sure.
Right, right, absolutely. I always enjoyed the Assassin's Creed series. That was always my favorite.
So back when I could see, I tried them a little bit. I enjoyed it, but I never stuck with it. And now I'm finding them too difficult to play. I heard some
They
of them
would
had
be. Yeah.
accessibility features, but I'm not familiar with that. I'm upset because, well, I can't really play classic Resident Evil that well anymore. And I would like to, I don't know, I'm wondering if there's some people are making mods for accessibility, for games these days. I'm
Right.
wondering if that's possible because or there's a new scripting language out called NVGT. I think it's non-visual game toolkit or something like that. And it's basically like a predecessor to I think it's called Blast Bay Games Toolkit or something like that. And you can port those old games to this newer scripting language. And I don't know, I think it'd be kind of fun to learn it. And if possible, create a sort of accessible version of those older games. Because I miss playing them. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do understand, I don't say this very often to people. I just don't have a chance to bring it up much. It doesn't really fit into what I do now, but when I was much younger, I was a huge flight simulator fan, and now that franchise has changed so much that I don't have enough vision for that anymore either. So it is very awkward and frustrating when we find that we just don't have the vision that we used to be able to enjoy that hobby for what it was then. But that's just how that is. And, I can tell you that I've interviewed several people, Robert. Now, I don't know, we don't know each other well, and I don't know how much you know about Aaron's opinion, my brand, my podcast, but I will tell you that I've interviewed several blind video game designers and several blind computer programming people who would be very, very good for you to speak with. Have you spoken? I forget. Are we friends on Facebook?
Think we might be. Think so.
Well, we can get to that later. But
Sure.
but I've had a very good conversation with Aaron Spelker.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, do you know him?
I do not. I think he runs one of the groups I'm in though, or at least a big part of it.
Well, are you in the accessible gaming group?
Yeah, I'm in there.
Yeah, Aaron Spelker.
Okay.
Yeah, you should talk to him about
Okay.
these different accessibility issues that you're finding and all these questions because he is a
Right. Sure.
brilliant designer and he's spent a lot of
Well,
time focusing on what games are accessible. Yeah, go
right.
ahead.
I'm gonna just put it out there right now. I'm way in over my head when it comes to programming. It's not something I'm going to do or I'm good at, and that's fine. That's perfectly okay. I enjoy the seeing them and interacting with people. And I do know a little bit of scripting language for Doom, because we were some. I was working on a Resident Evil style monster pack for Doom, the classic one from the '90s, Doom and Doom 2. And it took me 3 years to figure out even just the most basic things. And
Right,
so I was able
right.
to modify it and change a few things around and make it more like classic Resident Evil.
Mm.
But that's really, if I were to learn any programming, it's going to have to start off really simple, um, like that scripting language did. And I just kind of worked with it over time, and I eventually started getting it. And if I decide to work with NVGT stuff, and look at that and go through the tutorial, I see they have some documentation on it, see
Mm.
where it goes. But I only plan to do it as a hobby, because it's very
That's
time
fine.
consuming. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but it's obviously very fun for you because
Yes.
so then
Yep.
you sort of developed this ironic interest in escape rooms, right? You've definitely developed that interest, right? So where did you get such an interest in escape rooms and then turning them into virtual experiences? How
I've
did you
never,
become so interested in that?
I've never done one before, actually.
I
Not,
think you
not,
have.
not to this day. I have never done a single escape room.
Oh.
So I don't even know if what I'm doing is actually right or in line with other escape rooms, but either way, I've noticed that people are having fun, and that's all I care. You know.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
we were trying to, on the Blind Buddies group, come up with different ways of, hey, there isn't a whole lot going on around here, and people are kind of, moving away, moving to other groups, and just not really interacting. So, like, what could we do to get people coming back and to get people having fun? Because that's really our goal. We want people to enjoy the server, interact with one another. We want some events for people to come together and, work on or experience. So my original idea was, well, we could try an escape room, but it would be neat if it could be like server wide. So, or at least a section of the server specially reserved for it. And so what that would have looked like was, you're in the lobby, and that's where the audio is and the voice chat. But then there are different rooms that could open up, like different Discord channels in the server. Like one could be called dining room, and the other one would be like, main hall. And you could go in there, and there's information and ways to clues that you could possibly find to help you solve puzzles to proceed to the next area. And I don't know, we were just talking about it back and forth and thought, well, that's not going to work for some of the members here. And we would need to make it a little more simple. So I left it alone for a little while. But I couldn't leave it alone. I kept coming back to it. I kept thinking, there's got to be some way to make this work. And so I came up with the idea to use AI generated music, some background noise on YouTube, put a story together, and have a narrator from 11 Labs, AI generated voicing, read it, and just roll with it and see what happens. And that's basically how it all started. I let people make that vote, as I said earlier. Ghost Train Blues was our first escape room, and so I started crafting the story, putting everything together, and so far
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. How did the escape room about something about the shipwreck one go? How did that one go?
It went well. That was our second escape room. So as I said, there's two of them so far. Deep sea treasure hunt. Basically, your goal is to dive to the bottom of just dive down into the ocean to a sunken pirate ship and collect as much treasure as you can before time runs out and you start losing your oxygen. But be careful. You're not alone. You might not be alone down there. So the whole time players are down there, and they're looking through bits of debris and in and around barrels and decaying crates and all this kind of stuff, just looking for different trinkets and bits of, coins, or even if I hit a treasure chest somewhere. And there's a few spots where they would have to actually solve a puzzle in order to get, you know, more valuable treasure. I'd say that's worth more points. But all the while, there's like a secret area that they can discover, which has this black pearl, which was their main goal. And it
Hmm.
tells you about that in the story. I don't want to give too much away, but you have to go and look for this thing. And as you do, you start to discover, no, you're not alone down here. And it becomes more of, well, how do we get out of here alive than, you know, with the treasure than just finding treasure. It just kind of, I like to have different elements to the stories and to keep it interesting, keep it lively, you know. So,
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. How many
and I
people joined the deep sea treasure hunt one from last time?
seven or eight, I think, and in the first one, about 10 people joined. I was blown away. That's some of the biggest, events on our little server that we've had so far. So, because
Yeah.
usually, people will filter in and out with trivia and other things like that, and sometimes they'll decent amount of people will come in, but for us, it's unusual to have like 10 plus people in there for a serve for an event. And with the Ghost Train Blues, I took more of a 1950s, 1930s and 1950s approach. I had that style of music in there. It's
Yeah,
really easy to
definitely.
generate stuff like that with Udio.
Hmm.
And because I wanted to, I mean, sure, I could go out there and grab any music, but I wanted it to be unique to this event. So
Right.
I went and generated my own for better or worse. And with the deep sea treasure hunt, I took more of an orchestral approach. I
Mm.
didn't want, I was looking for sea shanties at first, and I was trying to actually generate some of those as well. I wasn't really experienced with how to do that at the time, so I settled for more like a orchestral approach with a bit of a upbeat music at the end when certain things happen. And
Hmm.
with this next one, here's something new I did. Udio now gives you the ability to upload music and extend it or replace bits of it or whatever. And so I had a tiny bit of that going on with a bunch of sort of creepy circusy style music because the next one is Carnival of the Lost. It should be done soon, this coming week.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I in that one, and I voice Wraith, of course, in that
You are
one.
voicing the main villain, which, well, you're not. You are the Wraith, which the main villain is trying to summon from this dream realm.
That's
And
true.
so as the players progress, they're going to start realizing, hey, something's wrong with this place. This, whatever's going on here isn't normal. And this ringmaster is trying to bring something forth from some other dimension. And that's basically who you're voicing, that wraith that
Right.
comes from that
That
other
sort of
dimension.
basically entity,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil how you come across that entity because it's possible. But if you're interested in playing it, you'll just have to come and see how it pans out. Because you cannot.
Ah.
This is our biggest and most ambitious one yet. You will not be able. There's going to be several points throughout the story where you're going to choose where to go, but you're not going to have enough time to visit everywhere. So you'll have to play through at least three times in order to see each area
Right.
of the game. And there will be two different endings to this one. There will be a way to alter the ending depending on what you do,
Mm-hmm.
which is I have never done before. So
Okay. Okay. Well, I hope that you're able to use my audio, by the way. I hope at least you
yes,
enjoyed that and that you enjoyed my interpretation of this entity.
I did.
But, well, thank you.
I
But
was will be able to use it, and I already have. I couldn't find a narrator for. I wanted originally people to be led around by a voiced ghost or robot clown
hmm
that you meet at the beginning. He was originally helping the ringmaster, but decides to help you after something happens. But I
right.
couldn't find. I mean, AI voices are still they're good, but they're not that good for that kind of thing. And it's already too late to find someone else to actually voice it because the
Sure.
event is taking place on the 26th. So I settled for connecting the carnival to the train, the ghost train, by having there was a note you find in the train, and the note was from a father to his daughter and wife who were on the train.
Oh yeah, that's
And
right.
this story is basically how the father found the music box that you end up finding on the train. So I could even, if I figured out how, I could even play that little tiny bit of story. It has no sound or music yet, just purely voice. And that would, explain a little bit more. It's basically just the intro of the event. Um, but I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, yeah, it's tricky to find enough voice actors like me and other people who are willing and able and have the time to do it. It's a very tricky thing, and it also the
Right.
timing of reaching out to the people has to be just right. It's a very
Yep.
tricky thing.
Yep.
So,
But I'm wondering if I could
mm-hmm.
potentially one day take these to the next level. I'm starting to,
Mm-hmm.
I'm advertising these to like local groups. I'm doing them for free, of course, but I'm wondering if one day I could do like paid experiences where they're much bigger and better, you know.
Well, you can, Robert, and you should, but I just wonder how much bigger and better does it get? I mean, like
True.
how much? It's great fun. No, no, no. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's not fun. I'm
Right.
just saying it is what it is. It's just a
Right.
virtual group video game that you have. It's like a virtual puzzle that you have to solve together with your friends,
Right. Yeah.
which is
Well,
super fun. But
yeah.
I just wonder how much. What else could you add to this? I mean, what
True.
do you think?
I think positional audio. So like if people are wearing headphones,
Mm-hmm.
they could say, you're in the castle entrance of the carnival.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could hear some sort of clicking noise off to your right somewhere off in the corner. You know,
Right.
like if there was some way I could do, and it's just down to learning audio editing. I'm actually looking into Reaper. I don't know what it's capable of, but I
Oh,
heard
a
it's
lot. Reaper's
accessible.
amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't do it. I don't use it, but it's an amazing software.
I heard it's accessible, so I figured, well, might as well give it a shot. But I would like to get a hold of some piece of software, and I was actually thinking of experimenting with PowerPoint, but I would like a better way of administering audio files at, than just flipping through folders and using VLC, and sometimes multiple windows of VLC, because that's how it's running right now.
Hmm.
You start watching the stream. I tell people it is not a visual experience. You're not going to like what you see. So just close your eyes and listen, if you do have any eyesight, because I'll be flipping through folders, I'll be playing audio files, sometimes multiple at a time to get the desired effect. And I know how to do some audio editing. I've used a WavePad before, so once I things have been a bit crazy with me lately, so once I've got more time to actually sit down and put things together, I might not have to play multiple audio files at once too much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be nice to have some sort of interface where I could have a scoreboard, a timer, maybe a spot for a background image, so I could include like an image of the location you're in. That'd be kind of neat for those who could see it. It's not super important, but it would add that extra little flair, you know, and a way to like play sounds with hotkeys, ideally, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, that would be very, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by groups, what other groups are you like advertising to and reaching out to? Like what other groups do you think will find out about this? Because you have to be on Discord, so it's already kind of a specific community.
Well,
Hmm.
yes and no. I actually took my laptop to a friend's house. They were having a little get together, and I sat that thing down on the table, plugged it in, and we did the escape room right there in person. Now, it didn't sound as good as it could. I would personally like to have some speakers with me, which,
Right.
I can save up for. That's not an issue. But I think, the audio quality is important, and I don't think it necessarily has to be online. I could go to family events where people just want something to do for a night,
Hmm.
and I could set everything up, and we could all be in a room drinking coffee or whatever and just throwing down on one of the escape rooms. And that's kind of what I'm wanting to do. I'm advertising it on my Facebook page, just my personal Facebook page. And I'm not really sure where to advertise. I'm really new to all of this. I'm sort of winging it.
Right,
I
right,
never
yeah.
actually looked into what other escape rooms do. I'm not really sure where the best places are to advertise stuff,
I don't know.
or any of that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, I don't know. I would say, well, once we off air, once we connect on Facebook, and once you join Aaron's Opinion podcasting community, that's our Facebook group for Aaron's Opinion. Once you join that
mhm.
group, definitely post this information in the group. Please post it, and please post it in our WhatsApp group. We have several people who are very into this type of thing who would love this. So
Oh,
you could
okay, perfect.
definitely advertise to my audience for sure, and I'll definitely especially if you set up a little post that says, "Hey, coming up on the 26th, there's going to be this escape room." If you set up a little post, I can definitely get my audience to come into the studio and come into your Discord and definitely tune in and play. Absolutely.
Okay, that would be
But
wonderful. Yeah,
yeah, but now, who might those people be? Well, who knows? That's always the Russian roulette. You're kind of just
right.
throwing the dice, and whoever happens to come into it and things like that, that's the person that would really like that. Yeah.
Sure,
I,
absolutely.
I would say, have you played around a lot with the any of those like um AI reality like Oculus or anything like that? Because you strike me as someone who would be very interested in that.
I would love to. But I only have partial vision out of the left half of my right eye, and I've always been afraid to pull the plug and spend hundreds of dollars to buy something that probably won't work for me.
Right. I see. I see. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I've never used a virtual reality. That's what's called virtual reality headset before, but they are very popular. Hmm.
Yeah, they are. They actually remade Resident Evil 4 to work exclusively, like in Oculus, and it looks incredible. It really does. Seeing the whole world from a first person perspective, and it just blows my mind, what these developers have accomplished these days. But I've always just figured, the way the way the goggles are set up, the headsets, I would have a tough time seeing everything the way the lenses are and the way it's all. And, maybe someone knows more than I do. Maybe it's not that bad, but I just I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone who's got one to even try it out.
Nor do I. Nor do I. It the other thing that I've seen a lot of is some people like to do it just for like the various nature experience. There's a lot of nature games you can play, and you can like go to a
Hmm.
certain part of the world, and you can like kind of relax in nature and like survive in the wilderness. That's kind of cool too. That's kind of relaxing,
Yeah,
in a way. So there's a lot of different purposes for it, for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. And speaking of that, speaking of nature and relaxing in nature, that's one of my favorite things to do as well. If I can get out, get out on the water, I just love it. Because
Yeah.
more recently, friends I've had are, busy. People that I used to go places with have passed on, and I'm not getting out a whole lot anymore. My grandmother had two car accidents, and she broke her hip at Lowe's, and
Jeez.
nobody here has a car. So now that I'm free of this addiction that I had, or at least mostly so, I'm still stuck with it because I want to get out and do something, and I'm struggling to do that because of where I live.
Right.
you know. And so I like to listen to soundscapes. Like there's a good one called Meditation Walk. It's part of the Antichamber soundtrack. It's one of the games I used to play. It's a puzzle game, and it's like a good hour or so of just chilled out outside noise. Crickets, rainstorms, and all kinds of stuff, and it's relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's tough. That's tough. When you got out in the past, when a family member of yours had a car, where would you go? Like what activities would you do when you were able to get out?
Well, I'd go to a friend's house and basically sit down and do the same thing, just sit on a laptop, play a game or something. I'd go to the store, help get groceries, all that sort of stuff. But, people tried to help me and get me out and doing things before. But back then I didn't really care. Now it's kind of the opposite. People are too busy. People are living their lives and nobody has a car here. And I'm wanting to get out and can't.
Yeah, yeah. You shouldn't be too hard on yourself about that because if we had known that society was going where it was going, if we had known that, we might have done things differently.
Right.
Who knows what we would have done differently if we had known that we would be where we are.
Right.
But the fact
I,
is we are where we are, you
that's
know.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say try to expand. I mean, it's almost impossible, but try to find other people who live near you and just try.
Sure. Well,
Um,
I connect with folks at church. Most of them are, older than I, and we go,
hmm
they go out to eat oftentimes on, after church, and sometimes I'll join them. There's also a friend I'll go riding around with, but other than that, there's really not, I don't really know anybody out here anymore. Everyone's moved away and people have changed, times have changed, and the community's not quite as lively as it once was. You know how it
I,
goes.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Well, I don't know. When I was a very little boy, I lived in communities where there was a lot more activity, and then I spent the majority of my life living in a rural community, living near Washington, D.C. And now I'm in the southeastern part of the United States, living in more of an urban community. But still,
Mhm.
there's a lot of elderly people, and so it's still very, very difficult to
Yeah.
fully, and integrate in every way. You can just try to make little improvements as you go along, but it is a
Right.
very difficult thing.
Right. Oh,
But yeah,
just real quick, I'd forgotten something as well that I should have said
sure.
earlier about the whole escape room thing. Another way I'm going to improve is adding more sound effects and, if possible, getting more actual humans voicing things. So,
hmm
yeah, those are two more improvements I'd like to do.
Yeah, well, we know a lot about the voice acting section. I know there's a guy, he's not here now, but there's a guy in that I know of, and there's several different people that you should contact for that. There's this
Yeah.
organization called Zollyhood Universe, and they have all sorts of voice actors who are blind from all over the world, all different accents, all different languages. So
Wow.
that
Okay.
that would be you should talk to this guy that we know, Jazzy, and say, I do these escape rooms, these virtual experiences, and I need more voice acting.
Okay. I will definitely look into that.
And and we can have people from all over the world to voice, perhaps even things in other languages and definitely other accents. So it's very, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it'd be kind of neat to have like a platform where you could put these together, basically like what I'm doing now. Upload all your audio, upload your images if you want any, set up your scoreboard and timer, and
hmm
people can get together themselves, and someone can be the host or dungeon master if that's what you want to call them, and the rest of them can interact and play. It'd be kind of neat. I've seen virtual events like, virtual escape rooms out there, but I've been in a tight spot recently and I wasn't able to afford attending these, but that's about to change. So I'm going to actually go into one for the first time, hopefully later this year.
And what is so different about these other virtual escape rooms?
Not a clue. I've never done one, so they don't like to show you what's in them until you're actually experiencing it,
hmm
because spoilers. You don't want to do that.
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
I guess I'll find out when that time comes.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Sure. Yeah.
So
That's very interesting. Yeah. Let's see. I think you did one. You got the train one, the ocean one, and now the carnival with me for next week, and then maybe something like oh, here's a good one. International Space Station. Some sort of thing where you're an astronaut in space and then something goes wrong and you end up getting sucked into a black hole.
that could be, yeah, that might actually be a good idea. I was thinking a space one would be fun, but I wasn't sure what to do with that. So that's actually a good idea.
Hmm.
So I'll look
Well,
into that.
something with like alternative universes and things like that, or
Hmm.
multiverse, or um, some sort of character like that, where there's like an evil character that kind of materializes from the multiverse
Yeah.
as some.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, I don't want to give away too much, but the train has an element of travel, which you'll come to see if, if whenever I do a rerun that has
Hmm.
something to do with like interdimensional travel.
Right.
And its effects, or there is something that's affecting this universe. I'm trying to kind of come up with an overarching story, like a whole universe, which that's why I'm connecting the escape rooms together with certain characters so that it all feels kind of cohesive. But as these are developed, I'll try and implement more bits to the story, which tell you, why this train and why other things are going on. So yeah, there will be some sort of a villain or some element of time travel or
Mm.
interdimensional travel to this for
Hmm.
sure. I don't want to give away too much. It's
Hmm.
spoiler territory.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be as careful as I can while still revealing a little something to get
Right.
people, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some sort of storyline where, yeah, there's time travel and then like life paths or something like that. You have to choose your path, or you have to choose your something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
timelines. Yeah, the
right.
different timelines.
Yeah.
And then if you like, how do I put it? If you mix up the timeline, like then you lose, or then you get trapped in the void, or something
Hmm.
very similar to that.
Right, right. Yeah.
Or you could do one with like dark side of the moon. There's been a lot of research about the dark side of the moon. You could do one about
Hmm.
that too,
Yeah.
easily, you
Okay.
know.
I'll
Hmm.
keep that in mind. Well, we're
Um,
doing the haunted. We're going to be having a haunted mansion in October
that's
for
a good one.
Halloween.
That's a good
I'm
one.
also thinking of having an asylum in one month, either this or next year.
Hmm.
Someone gave me an idea for doing like a burning building sort of escape, so I thought that was a good idea. Might have to come up with a story to surround that one and figure it out.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's a lot of potential here. We just got to see where it goes.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's all very, very, very compelling for
yeah.
sure, for sure. So yeah, and what are your other opinions about Discord? You seem to really obviously like Discord, but what are some other things and hopes and aspirations that you have for Discord?
To be honest, I just want to build a pleasant, vibrant community for, blind and low vision folks to enjoy. That's
Hmm.
really my main goal. I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm not playing games with folks or anything like that. I just want to build a beautiful community for people to relax in, and take advantage of whatever resources we have. Our group we were wanting to start up Braille classes coming soon, hopefully. There's trivia night and there's other things, and I want people to have things to do and somewhere to go if they want a nice drama-free experience. That's honestly it. That's and my opinion on Discord though is I think it's one of the better platforms for people to get together right now and do these things. It has a lot of accessibility, and it has a lot of tools and features there which can cater to a wide variety of things, wide variety of events or the needs of different things. So, you know,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that about covers it. But of course, before we go, I want Latavo all the way from Pretoria to ask a question. I'm sure that he has a question for you. We had a great discussion earlier this morning, and I'm sure that he has a question now. So, Latavo, what do you think about all this escape room business? I might have to do I have to unmute you? Or can you unmute? Uh, you definitely, you definitely are unmuted. Um, but anyway, um, so let's go back to me. So Robert, if you can ask me now only one question, to really make me sweat to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster, what do you really want to ask me?
I didn't even think, I'd never even thought about it. Actually, I got to be honest with you.
That's
Um,
okay.
I'm not even sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, many people have questions though for me.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Um, well, I'm just, guess sort of a more obvious one. I guess where do you, I think someone said something in a chat.
Yeah, maybe his headset's not on. Yes, Latavo,
Right.
you can type, man. What do you want to know about the virtual escape rooms? Yes, what do you want to know? Mm-hmm. But yes, while he's typing,
And
yes,
and
Robert, what do you want to know? Yeah.
answer or to ask your, question, I was just going to ask, where do you see yourself with this stuff in like say 5, 10 years? What do you see
Oh.
yourself doing more with, podcasting, or do you have like other aspirations with this as well that you'd like to, other
More
things
and
that,
more with this because
yeah,
podcasting is just a constantly growing art form.
right.
Everybody now has a podcast. When I got interested in this in the early 2010s, this was weird.
Hmm.
2010s, if someone said, I want to start a podcast, people would be like, what? What's that? And although the art form of podcasting has been around since the early 2000s, the majority of the podcasts were not podcasts that were just started up by individuals. It's
Hmm.
only become very recently that anyone can start a podcast now about any topic. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the difference that I see. You know, yeah,
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
Whereas, a long time ago, doing what we're doing now would have taken a lot more effort, a lot more software, a lot more blood, sweat, and tears to create the full experience. But now you can just
Yes.
record something and then just put it up somewhere else, and then it's
Yep.
just an experience.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, it's
Cool.
really incredible. Yeah.
Well, this
I
is
guess
the,
the other thing too that you could incorporate too in your server is more like game night, like not necessarily escape rooms, but playing different types of games, solving crossword puzzles.
hmm
That's fun. That is super fun. If you get a
well,
group of people together, and we say like, hey, we're just going to work on a crossword puzzle as a group, that's like really exciting. That you'd be surprised how exciting and entertaining that is. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we are actually researching that. We're actually looking into a few options, or an option
Mm-hmm.
that we've stumbled upon to do just that. There's something we're hoping to add soon that might have multiple games. Some of them, well, more accessible than others, but it's
Right.
something I'm currently researching on how to implement.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's.
Whether it's done through Discord bots or if it can be done via voice call, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm still looking at what's out there and what works well with screen readers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it seems to work very well. So yeah.
Well, it,
Mhm.
it, it also depends on for example, if we use bots, it depends on the bot author as well. Some, they can put, they can have buttons that just say unlabeled button, or unlabeled or unavailable. Okay, like, well, what is that? Did I put an X there or an O, for example, if it's tic-tac-toe? Or is there an image there? Because sometimes you can have a button or other things with images on them, and
Mm,
that's not very screen reader friendly. So
right.
it's when you're looking through Discord bots, for example, it can be a little hit or miss sometimes.
I've noticed. but they're fun. Working with the bots is a lot of fun, and it's very, very entertaining. So
It is
yeah,
fun. It is definitely.
yeah. But yeah, well, good, man. I think that does sum it up. And Latabo, you'll meet him in a few minutes over on the WhatsApp group anyway. But his
Okay,
headset's not
perfect.
on, and it's very late in South Africa anyway. So
Right.
I understand he
That's
just
okay.
wants to type. Yeah.
Right.
But anyway,
Well,
man. Anyway, Robert, if someone wants, so the other huge question that from the listener would probably be, so if someone wants to join the server and get in touch with you personally, how would they do that?
um, I'd have to find a place to put, we'd have to put our link somewhere, where I could basically advertise the server.
How about you type up a nice description if you could, where you tell a little paragraph about you and then type and then just give all the links that you want me to include for the server and everything. Yeah.
Sure,
Hmm.
I can do that.
Yeah,
And
definitely. That would
I'll
be really
send it
good.
to you, and you could send that out to folks because we definitely would love to have more members. We want more interaction, more
Right.
folks in the voice chats, and so on and so forth. So that'd be great. And before we wrap this up as well, I wanted to thank you for
You're so
bringing me on
welcome.
your show. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the experience as
I
well.
absolutely did.
Um,
I always knew when I started, when I met you last year, I always knew that you had a lot to share and that you would
mhm,
really get a lot out of it. I could just tell that
yeah,
he's going to get a lot out of it. I just have to talk him into it. And I
sure.
was right. So you
Well,
did fine. You did great. Yeah.
thank you, man. It's much appreciated. This is my very first podcast. I've hardly
And
ever listened.
hopefully not your
Yeah,
last. And hopefully you'll really get a lot out of it and learn more
right.
about the podcasting form. And,
Sure.
it's a huge form of media. It really
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
definitely. All
Yeah.
righty. Thank you
Really.
so very much.
You are so very welcome, Robert Tirotta.
All right.
Always welcome here in Aaron's Opinion. All right, man. We'll catch up soon.
All right.
As all right. So as we say here at Aaron's Opinion, thank you for listening, everyone. We will be back soon. Take care and be well. And as we like to say, help one person today, help 1 million people tomorrow.